Thank you, Phil. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you, Congresswoman, for being as vertically challenged as I am, so that there's actually a convenient little footstool right here, which is fabulous. I was just sharing with the Congresswoman that my family vacation was actually a week-long trip to California this August, and I know my wife and children would like me to be saying that the high point of the trip was our family time in Yosemite. But in a lot of ways, it was a morning conversation around intellectual property that TechAmerica convened, hosted by Google, and a really remarkable range of folks who participated. I, having just come out of the mountains, was somewhat oblivious to the announcement of the acquisition of Motorola that morning. And there was a fair amount of byplay in the back of the room, and I couldn't quite tell what was going on. I thought I was, still wearing something that smelled bad. It was an interesting morning. I come to you as a freshman senator, someone who is enough of a tech geek that I still get all excited every time. I have for most of my life gotten excited whenever Steve Jobs puts on a turtleneck and jeans and seems about to announce something that's going to make another leap forward as our world gets more complicated, more connected, and more engaging. And I'm someone who worked as in-house counsel for a materials-based science company that got its start in wire and cable in support of computers back 50 years ago. And have cared deeply about strengthening our protections for intellectual property now and going forward. Was pleased that the patent bill was actually signed into law. That having been done, I think I can now retire at night, and of course, my staff is learning what it means to work for a guy who is way into the details and loves to read literally everything and wants to know not just the two-page summary, but a chance to read the whole report. And I said to Phil, one of the challenges of being a senator is that I want to stay for this conversation. Instead, we get wheeled around from place to place and stood up. One of the things that the cloud means for folks like me is that instead of this all being diesel, it all being Xeroxed or copied and put into binders, we can do our document exchange by Google Docs, and that it should allow our government at every level, state, county, and federal, to take advantage of the strengths and the resources that the private sector long ago figured out. If you don't know our governor in Delaware, Jack Markell, he is a very talented and very bright man who has finally shown his wisdom by moving to a CRM platform for all of the constituent contacts. I do think it's Salesforce.com, if I'm not mistaken. And has discovered that by moving to Salesforce.com, they have the kind of flexibility, scalability, redundancy, and reliability that private sector cutting-edge folks who rely on that kind of capacity have long enjoyed. They're optimistic about the potential that that brings to delivering higher quality constituent service and better project management. But the policies that are going to set the regulatory framework for the next decade or beyond are being debated and considered even now. We have a markup session tomorrow on a data breach notification act in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and we have work that is not yet being done on the Electronic Communications Act and on CLIA and on many others. And it is my hope that your active engagement, your willingness to educate us, will move members of the Senate and the House from a dim awareness that there is some fundamental transformation going on to some familiarity with what the risks and rewards will be and what sort of an architecture we should be creating. One of the challenges of statutes like HECPA is that when the United States Senate tends to legislate on something as important as cybersecurity, we tend to do it once in a decade. And so as we were reviewing some of the elements of the current regulatory architecture, it was embarrassing to realize that it was written in an age when an email that existed more than 3 days was considered unusual, and an email once opened was considered a legitimate target for more aggressive national security oversight. Cybersecurity and how we do this over the next couple of years is not just critical to our national security, not just critical to our infrastructure, our power infrastructure, our financial services infrastructure, but to opportunity, to how we're going to create and sustain jobs in the United States and make our industry sustainably more competitive. I'm also someone who's very concerned about digital theft, as well as, to put it one way, digital violence, because it is today easier to steal an idea than to develop it. And we see in the popular press, and I think in the minds of folks who are leading many of our government agencies, an increasing awareness of the steadily increasing complexity and frequency of cyber attacks. It's my concern that we find ways to put in place protections for the private sector and the public sector that respond both to the opportunity and to the challenges of the environment in which we're moving. And it's also my hope that we're building a technological infrastructure that will support what I think is going to be a dramatic leap forward as we move towards cloud computing in every possible way, from individual devices to whole network systems to governments, small, medium, and large. And last, my hope is that as we move towards a new age in this body, in the Senate, in terms of being constantly connected and relying on these mobile devices, first, that the Sergeant-at-Arms will quit chastising me for occasionally checking my BlackBerry while I'm presiding in violation of Senate rules. But second, we will find opportunities to weave a stronger connection and a stronger dialogue in our American body politic, rather than further disaggregation, as we become more capable of communicating, remembering, and connecting, given these enormous new resources. I am grateful that TechAmerica has taken the time and made the investment to put together a strong, broad proposal for the core issues we ought to consider. And I'm grateful for your willingness to take time out of your busy days to invest in this conversation.